Okay, next question goes to Mr. Chine. It's along the same lines. Last year, a parent raised concern to the Board of Education and Superintendent because Austintown schools did not have a published transportation safety policy. Subsequently, a policy was put in place by the superintendent, but it did not address the safety concern raised by many parents. What is your opinion of the Board of Education adding specific criteria to the safety policy that the Transportation Department must meet so that the Transportation Director could create specific manpower and equipment estimates based on meeting these requirements and present them to the school administration and the Board of Education for budget allocation purposes? Yeah.
I think
agree.
it's a great idea. The board should be involved in that. And there again, they should be able to sit down, put in some policy, have a workshop with the district. We've had workshops before when we've had problems in the area or things that needed to go on. Open it up to the public. Let's get it all out into the open. Then sit down, put up your best foot, give it a shot.
Jim, your face after reading that was just hilarious. Thank you. A little comic relief works wonders. I think putting that into action would be awesome. Can we actually put a policy in that we do not adopt from the Ohio School Board Association? Can we actually write a policy here in Austintown? I think getting things out in the public's eye, informing the public, sitting down and communicating one-on-one with the public is a great idea. I think sitting down with transportation, the entire board, and the superintendent and fixing the busing issues is something that's been needed for a long time.
Transportation, or just the safety of our students, should always be of utmost importance. We need to balance and prioritize the budget, so make sure funds are allocated to transportation so they can provide that safety to our students. That was a long question, so that's it. Thank you.
I think the policy, if we don't have a good policy, we need to make a better one, and that should involve the community members, business people, a little select group of people that could come up with some a policy guidelines and be accepted by the Board of Education that we should follow.
Yeah, again, I would say that, these sorts of things are partnerships with the parents. They're with the school district and the students. There's also some Ohio Revised Code out there that provides some leadership in that. And there are also resources available to refer to with regard to busing.
I'm almost going to sound like a broken record. I agree. I mean, it would be great to put in a policy that's in place that the Transportation Department, the Board of Education, and the community have all had a voice in and developed it jointly, and that's all I'm going to say.
I would be open to that as well, having a respectful conversation, having input from the community and parents as to what we need to look at. I just would also like to add, too, that we do have guidelines from the Ohio Revised Code that we have to follow. And I can tell you that there's also a pupil transportation operation and safety rule manual that's 80-some pages long. So there are a lot of parameters in place, but always willing to have a conversation.
Mr. Sobian first. Some critics of the current Board of Education claim that most members have an out-of-touch, elitist, and cavalier attitude when it comes to our children's well-being, and that since they don't have children going to school in this district, that they have trouble empathizing with the parents of Austintown. Do you have any children who go to school in this district? And if not, what would you do to alleviate these concerns of the public regarding peer representation on the Board of Education? Also, do you think the superintendent of our school district should be required to live in the district? Why or why not?
First of all, I do have 4 children in our district currently. I have a daughter who's 19 years old, attends Fitch, a son 15 that attends Fitch, a 14-year-old son at AMS, and a 12-year-old son at AMS. I'm not going to sit here and bash a board member, but I do feel if you're going to sit on the school board, you need to have children attending the schools. Your decisions affect the community. Your decisions need to affect you. Can you read the second half of that question again?
Also, do you think the superintendent of our school district should be required to live in the district? Why or why not?
As much as I'd like to say yes, the state of Ohio has put in laws and put in legislation that we cannot require an employee to live in a district. But in the hiring process, can that question be asked? If you're hired, will you be willing to move to the Austintown community? That can be done. That can be part of the hiring process. Once again, if that superintendent lives in our district, he has to live by the decisions he makes, financially and educationally for his children.
Thank you.
I don't have any current children in the education system. I plan on having future children in the education system, depending how the school district fans out. On the superintendent issue, like Jim said, I don't think we should mandate that the superintendent should live in Austintown. But during the interview process, we should look at candidates that live in Austintown. If not, then see if they're willing to relocate. And having the, saying the current board's out of touch, I believe that I've gone through the current education system. I know the policies that are in place, so I can give a fresh and unique perspective to the board.
I currently have 2 grandchildren in Austintown school system, plus a few cousins. So, you know, I've just about had some relative in the school system since I was in. Would I like to see him live here? Absolutely. Does he have to? No. I think living in Austintown, you feel the pulse of the community. You're in touch with them more. And I think that's important when you're a superintendent of a school district, to get out and mingle with the people of Austintown. You feel like they feel like you're more part of the district than just driving back and forth every day. You know, it's not in my hands. You know, that would be a good thing to ask the next superintendent if we do get one. Everybody else that I ever worked with lived in Austintown.
Board members represent all kids, just not kids that are your own in the district. I feel no different for the kids in our district today than I did when our children, our 3 children, attended our schools. Our family, for 4 generations, has been involved in the Austintown Public Schools. During that time, there may have been or may not have been children actively in the schools, enrolled in the schools, but still, we felt that the school district is a cornerstone of a community, and that's why we kept at it. And that's why I will keep at it, because we have a grandson that lives in Austintown that will be attending our schools, and I want to continue to make our schools the excellent school district that it is. So, being a board member, I want to emphasize, you represent all children, just not your own.
Thank you.
Well, I do not currently have children. When I do decide to have children, I want them to go to the Austintown schools. But since I don't have children, I do have a niece and nephew who are currently attending Austintown Intermediate School. My niece is here in the audience today, Madison, and I am involved. I do help them occasionally with their homework. I pick them up, take them to schools from time to time because their father is a single parent. As for the superintendent, it would be an added benefit if they live in the Austintown community. I do not believe that we should be making that a requirement. Like a couple of the other candidates have said, that is something that we can ask when or if the time comes to where we are interviewing another superintendent.
Thank you.
Well, as far as students in the school currently, No, we do not have them. Did we have students here in the Austintown Local School District? Yes, we did. Would I say that I am not aware of what's going on in the school district? I would have to say I feel that I'm more involved in the education now. I have more time to be involved in actually what is going on in the Austintown Local School District. I feel that everyone's children, they are my children too. You know, I am their caretaker. I'm most vested in their education. I'm very proud of my community. And the school is the cornerstone of the community. And I want to see every single one of our children do well and be successful in their lives. As far as the superintendent, you can require to have a superintendent live in a school district. However, at the time our superintendent was hired, that was not the case. I feel that that is something that is not absolutely necessary, but you can do indeed just that.
I have a granddaughter and several nieces and nephews. No immediate children, but I do agree with Mr. Snurnberger. We are here for all the children, whether we have children here or we don't. The other side of that coin, sometimes having children here in the district leads to special agendas, which also sometimes is not a good situation. Superintendent living in our district, in the business I had been in all my life, when we go out to hire somebody, we go out to hire somebody that is the best worker for that position. Never once do I ever remember asking somebody, where do you live, when they came to our shop to try and get a job. I think the best person for the job, or the best person that applies, should be the person that gets the job.
Thank you. Next question is for Mr. Cornack. This is coming from a 6th grader. The school lunches are not the best. I ate it the first week of school, then I have packed my lunch since then. What would you do about this?
Our school lunch program has to follow strict guidelines set by the state and the federal government to continue to get funding. I'm sure there's other options we can do to make the meals more appetizing to the students. That's basically it.
Again, our lunches are set by guidelines from the state and federal government, but you can be innovative in how you present those items for people to consume. And I think that's where it comes up to our cafeteria staff to just be a little more innovative and make it more appealing to students. You know, younger kids especially are really picky. I could tell you that for a fact. But other than that, there's not much, you know, we've got to follow their guidelines.
Yeah, our school lunch program, we are actually ahead of the curve as far as following mandates as far as school lunches. Our food service director did a very fine job in getting us there quicker. Yeah, you can look at different options that fall within the guidelines. We can always do that. But, you know, maybe some kids just aren't used to eating healthy, too, these days. I think we have to take a serious look at that and see if maybe that's the issue and try and educate our kids. We talked about having some TVs, some TV time in the schools with regard to food groups and different lunches and how important this is. You know, as a society, we're overweight, we don't eat well, so we also talked at one of our workshops about educating our kids how to eat healthier and how to make good food choices. So I think there's some areas there that we can help with encouraging healthy lifestyles, which really are can be a lifetime concern.
Well, firstly, I just want to thank the 6th grader who wrote that question. That is great to see kids coming here and actually participating by asking questions. As for the lunches go, I think that we do need to look at that and evaluate that at the end of the school year. While it is federally mandated or in state mandated, we can be, as Ken said, more innovative in how we present that to the students and make sure that we are giving them a good quality lunch that they enjoy.
Well, one of the reasons we do have that Healthy Child Act that we have to follow is there's a big concern today with childhood obesity and childhood diabetes. So that's one of the reasons why we do have legislation in place like that. I can tell you, though, as far as our lunch counts, we are serving and selling approximately 2,380 lunches a day. And our breakfast counts have increased, too, from 287 to 428 meals. So things must not be declining. In fact, they're going up. And here's an interesting little nugget. The average McDonald's serves 1,600 lunches a day, and that's less than half of what we prepare here in the Austintown Local School District.
Like several have said, we do follow the state guidelines. To the parents that listen to their child that the meals are horrible, call the director of the cafeterias. They would be glad to have you come up here and try the meals. They have never turned anyone down. All you have to do, and I know that it has been said out there publicly, if you think that there's a problem with the meals, come up and try one of them. See for yourself. Don't listen to a sixth grader that wants hamburgers and french fries and chocolate chip cookies. Come on, let's be real.
Of those numbers that Kathy just read you as to what it is we're selling, 52% of those are paid by the federal government. 52% of the children in our schools are free and reduced lunch. Whether they get eaten or not, they equate into her numbers. 90% of those, from what I'm hearing, not a true statistic, are going straight in the garbage. If we want to be real, we got to feed our kids things that are palatable to children. I'm not saying giving them hamburgers and hot dogs and pizza constantly, but we got to look into what it is we are feeding them and look at alternatives. If you're trying to feed a child something they don't like and you're trying to force it down their throats, eat this or you eat nothing, they're going to try to eat it, and what's going to happen? You're going to have a big mess on the floor you're going to mop up. To that sixth grader, thank you very much.
Okay, this is the final question. Mr. Jacobek. Okay. And after I read this, I think it's probably an important question. After the failure of a previous school levy, the Board of Education mandated that Austintown parents pay school fees to obtain some of the money that would have been generated by the failed levy. If parents fail to pay these fees, they are punished by losing access to some grade reporting of their children's education. Critics have called these fees as an unsolicited, unapproved, not voted on tax imposed on the parents of the children who attend school by the superintendent and Board of Education without the permission or consent of the voters. What is your opinion on the practice of bypassing voters to impose such a tax, and what should be done about the current practice of school fees?
To put it bluntly, I think it stinks. I think that there are parents in this township that can't afford to pay those fees, and every year they keep going up and up. You know, we were talking about partnerships before. You know, you've got a lot of big stores and chain stores around here, and small businesses. That's where we could approach them to donate pens and paper and tablets to help our kids out, especially our needy kids. Some people could afford it, some cannot. And I think, you know, to just throw it on somebody that's going day to day and can't make ends meet is a total atrocity.
Taking a look at this, when this fees, and also at the same time, other measures were taken. The school district didn't have any new operating money, and I wasn't on the board at that time. It was a different board. Didn't have any new operating money since 1996, and the community failed to pass a levy, and the community was told that fees would be one of the things to follow. So the community was given a choice on the direction whether pay more in taxes or institute fees and other things. Fees are not something unique to our school district. I believe that 12 out of 14 school districts in Mahoning County use fees. In 2012, I believe, we talked about that as a board, and we found that our school district rests about in the middle. There are some higher and some lower in fees. The fee that is used in Austintown schools, if you're on free lunch, there is no fee. If you're on reduced lunch, there is half a fee. So there is some compensation there if you find yourself in those categories. So again, there's nothing unusual about student fees.
30 seconds.
When you have such things, they can provide some added funds that barely cover some of the expenses that the school district has. I believe we collected around $50,000 in student fees last year, and our bill for, or our cost for white paper was about $50,000. So it does help us in that
Time.
regard.
As for the student fees, I do not support the way that it was instituted, and it's the generic supply fee that I believe that the question was pointing out. I do not like the way that it was instituted. Also, I don't believe that we should still have that fee when we have a budget surplus at the end of the year like we have for the last several years. It's not needed. And I know Mr. Schnurberger did mention that the free lunch students do not have to pay that, and that is state mandated, that they do not have to pay that, and that's why. But no, I do not support that fee at all.
Right. Again, pretty much some of the information has already been stated. This particular fee was instituted in 2008 when we were not able to pass the issue that was on the ballot. I was not a board member at the time. Also, again, we are halfway in the middle as far as what we charge, a $20 fee, 12 of the 14 school districts. And again, just to reiterate, if there is a student that is on free lunch, we do not expect any fee to be paid. And again, if they are on reduced, it's only half. So it is just a $20 fee, and that money that is collected is distributed to our classroom teachers in grades K through 6 to help buy supplies.
I understand that people do not want these fees, but it always seems that Austintown is the only place that does this. Like a couple of the people have said already, 12 of 14 schools in our area have these fees. The money, it's not going south. The money is being used for the children. It's still coming back to them.
Personally, I think the supply fee's a crock. And I'm really tired of hearing, well, Johnny did it, so I felt like doing it, so why are you yelling at me? Just because someone else does it doesn't make it right. We had a fiscal carryover of $6.7 to $7 million. Do we really need to be charging our residents $20 a piece fees that until today we haven't been able to get out of the board where their money goes? It needs to go away. Things need to be done right, not as status quo.
Thank you.
Just because another school does it doesn't mean it's right for our district. We need to use common sense and prioritize our budget so we can get rid of these fees. It is a unnecessary burden on the parents of our students. That's it.
Thank you.